Have you ever wondered why some people are told by their doctors that they have high LDL cholesterol, take statin medication faithfully for years, and yet one day still suffer a sudden heart attack? Could it be that modern medicine has been focusing on the wrong number, not necessarily the most important one? For decades, LDL cholesterol, often called the bad cholesterol, has been blamed as the main culprit behind heart disease. But more and more studies are showing that the story isn't nearly that simple. In fact, focusing only on LDL may cause us to miss the real, silent threats that are damaging blood vessels. Doesn't it seem strange that even though heart attack deaths have gone down, the total number of people with heart disease keeps rising? If LDL isn't the most accurate predictor, then what is the hidden factor behind the heart attacks that claim millions of lives each year? And more importantly, what can you, at age 60 or 70, do right now to protect your heart without depending entirely on medication? Stay with me until the end, because in just a few minutes, you'll discover the true golden marker that determines heart attack risk, and I promise the answer will surprise you. The truth is, cholesterol itself is not our enemy. It's actually essential to life. Did you know that every cell membrane in your body, as well as hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and cortisol, are made from cholesterol? Even if you ate zero cholesterol, your body would still manufacture it to survive. So why have we been told for years that the lower the cholesterol, the better? You may have heard your doctor talk about HDL, the good cholesterol, and LDL, the bad cholesterol. It sounds simple, but the reality is much more complicated. LDL has been cast as the villain in heart disease, so if your LDL is high, most doctors will tell you to eat less fat and take statins. Has your doctor ever given you this advice? For decades, medicine treated LDL as the single most important measure of heart attack risk. But here's the paradox. When researchers looked at the data, they found LDL is only strongly concerning when it's extremely high, above 190 milligrams per deciliter, usually in people with rare genetic conditions. But what about the millions of people with LDL in the typical range of 70 to 150? Does your LDL number really tell the whole story? And here's the scary part. Millions of people are still taking statins every single day to lower LDL, yet heart attacks haven't gone away. Why is that? Could it be that we've been aiming at the wrong target all along, while the real culprit is still silently clogging our arteries? If you found what I've shared so far helpful and want to keep uncovering the hidden truths about heart health, I'd like to ask a small favor. Hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment below. Type 1 if you agree we need to know the truth behind cholesterol, or type 0 if you still believe LDL is the #1 culprit. Your feedback will help me know I'm on the right track in bringing valuable knowledge to our community. Now, let's go deeper to answer an important question. Is LDL really as frightening as we've been led to believe, or is there something else hiding behind the scenes?
1. LDL is not always dangerous. In medical history, LDL cholesterol was labeled the #1 enemy, starting with the famous Framingham study decades ago. Researchers noticed that people with very high LDL also had a higher risk of heart attacks. At first glance, this sounded convincing. But when scientists dug deeper, they discovered something surprising. LDL only becomes truly alarming when it exceeds 190 milligrams per deciliter, a level extremely rare, usually caused by genetic disorders. So what about the majority of us, with LDL between 70 and 150? Perhaps you're asking yourself, is my LDL level really that dangerous? Take a typical patient like Mary, a 67-year-old from Florida. During her routine checkup, her blood test showed an LDL of about 120. Immediately, her doctor prescribed statins and told her to take them every day to prevent a heart attack. Mary followed instructions, but deep inside she worried, will I have to take this medication for the rest of my life? And even if I do, does it guarantee I won't have a heart attack? Does that question sound familiar? As though it might be your concern too? The truth is, with an LDL of 120, Mary's cardiovascular risk is not as high as we've been led to believe. Statistics show that when LDL increases, the risk of heart attack rises by about 30%. That may sound significant, but in reality, this number only reflects a correlation. It doesn't prove LDL is the direct cause. So, have we been exaggerating LDL's role all these years? If you pay attention, you'll notice there are many people with normal LDL who still suffer heart attacks, while others with high LDL live healthily for decades. So what's the truth behind this paradox? And if LDL isn't the sole culprit, then what about statins, the most widely prescribed drugs in the world? Do they really save millions of hearts?
Statins. Lowering LDL, but not always lowering heart attack risk. Have you ever heard someone say that statins are the savior of heart health? That as long as you take them regularly, your risk of a heart attack will drop dramatically? It sounds reassuring, but is it entirely true? Let's take a look at the scientific data. In a major trial called Accelerate, LDL cholesterol was lowered to very low levels with medication. But the surprising result? The number of heart attacks did not decrease. Isn't it strange? If LDL was already low, why wasn't the heart protected? Another example is the Jupiter study. Patients on statins reduced their LDL to an average of just 54, an impressively low number. Yet they still faced significant risk of coronary disease and death. What does this mean? Could it be that we are using drugs to target something that isn't really the main culprit? Let me share with you the story of Richard, a 72-year-old retired engineer. He took statins faithfully for 10 years because his LDL hovered around 100. But one morning, he still ended up in the emergency room with a sudden heart attack. Afterward, he asked himself, if the medication kept my LDL low, why wasn't my heart protected? That same question echoes in the minds of countless older adults who take these pills every single day. The reality is that statins mainly lower LDL type A, the large, buoyant particles that are actually less harmful to blood vessels. Meanwhile, the real culprit is small, dense LDL, the type that sticks easily to artery walls and sparks plaque buildup. If the drug doesn't strongly affect the most dangerous form of LDL, then lowering the overall LDL number doesn't necessarily mean the heart is safer. So if not all LDL is dangerous, what exactly is the hidden enemy in our blood? And why are so many people still treating the wrong target?
LDL type B, the real culprit. If LDL isn't all bad, then what is truly dangerous? The answer lies in a detail that few people, even many doctors, are not deeply trained to recognize. LDL exists in two different forms. One is large and buoyant, called type A, which is practically harmless to arteries. The other is small and dense, known as type B, and this is the hidden predator threatening the heart. Isn't it fascinating that LDL, long thought to be a single villain, actually comes in two very different personalities? One as harmless as a teddy bear, the other as vicious as a predator? LDL type B is the true culprit behind plaque formation and heart attacks. It slips easily into the artery walls, creating hard plaques that one day may rupture, trigger a blood clot, and set off a heart attack. You might be wondering, so why doesn't a standard blood test tell me whether I have LDL type B or not? The answer is that standard blood tests only measure total LDL, treating all particles as if they were the same. This creates a paradox. Many people don't have very high LDL overall, but most of it is the dangerous type B, making them the ones most likely to suffer a heart attack. Meanwhile, others may have a relatively high total LDL, but it's mostly type A, and they remain healthy. So, which group do you think is truly at risk? Take the case of Susan, a 70-year-old woman who loved sweets and processed foods. Her blood test showed an LDL of just 110, not particularly high. Her doctor reassured her, but only a few years later she was hospitalized with a heart attack. When doctors analyzed further, they discovered that most of her LDL was the small, dense type B, formed largely from eating sugar and refined carbs. You see, the real culprit wasn't her total LDL number at all, but this dangerous LDL subtype. So how can we identify the true risk without relying only on LDL? The answer lies in another marker, one rarely emphasized, but far more important than LDL. Can you guess what it is? That marker is triglycerides, a type of fat in the blood often overlooked. Large-scale studies have shown that while high LDL only raises risk by about 30%, high triglycerides can raise the risk by as much as 80%. Isn't it surprising that the true culprit has been sitting right there in the blood test, yet most people hardly pay attention to it? High triglycerides are not just a number, they are a clear sign of metabolic syndrome, a condition rooted in insulin resistance. This is the very foundation that drives millions of cases of heart disease, fatty liver, and type 2 diabetes. Have you ever thought that your triglyceride level might be the mirror reflecting your entire metabolic health? Let's look at James, a 74-year-old man whose blood test showed LDL at just 95, which sounded great, but his triglycerides were 220, while his HDL, the good cholesterol, was only 35. The ratio of triglycerides to HDL was far above the safe range, and sure enough, just 1 year later he was hospitalized with a heart attack. Do you see the paradox? LDL looked normal, yet his heart was still in danger. What's even more dangerous is that high triglycerides often go hand in hand with type B LDL, the small dense particles we just talked about. In other words, triglycerides act like a switch that activates this harmful LDL. If your triglycerides are high, you can be almost certain that your blood contains a lot of type B LDL. So let me ask you, between someone with slightly high LDL but low triglycerides and someone with normal LDL but high triglycerides, who do you think has the greater risk of a heart attack? The answer is clear. But more importantly, what can we do to lower triglycerides, balance the triglyceride-HDL ratio, and truly protect the heart? Don't look away, because next I'll share practical, simple, and highly effective solutions that anyone can apply. Now that you know triglycerides and small, dense LDL are the real culprits, you're probably asking, so what should I do to reduce my risk of a heart attack? The good news is that you can absolutely take control with small lifestyle changes, not just rely on medication. Doesn't it feel reassuring to know that you, not a prescription bottle, hold the key to protecting your heart? First, let's look at diet. What raises triglycerides is not natural fats like olive oil, butter, or fatty fish, but refined carbs and added sugars. Each time you drink a can of soda or eat a few pastries, your triglyceride level can spike. Have you ever thought that those sweet treats might actually be silent poison for your arteries? One of my patients, Linda, 69, loved cookies and soda. Her triglycerides measured 240, with HDL only 38. I suggested she replace her afternoon cookies with fresh fruit and add a brisk 20-minute walk each day. After 3 months, the results were impressive. Triglycerides dropped to 140 and HDL rose to 50. See how just one small but consistent change can create such a dramatic difference. Beyond cutting sugar and refined carbs, regular exercise, especially brisk walking or jogging, has been proven to lower triglycerides and reduce small, dense LDL. Adding omega-3s from salmon, sardines, or fish oil is another natural way to reduce triglycerides and inflammation, a key factor in artery disease. Have you tried adding fatty fish to your meals at least twice a week? Most importantly, remember, the goal isn't to drive LDL as low as possible, but to keep triglycerides low, HDL high, and the triglyceride-HDL ratio within a safe range. So what do you think? If a simple change in your daily meals could help you avoid a heart attack, wouldn't it be worth trying? And now, after understanding the true cause and the ways to prevent it, let's move to the final part, where we'll summarize the biggest takeaway and I'll share the most important message for you and your family. We've come a long way, from believing that LDL cholesterol was the #1 enemy to realizing that the real culprits are small, dense LDL and high triglycerides. Are you thinking right now, so have I been worrying about the wrong thing all these years? The truth is, you weren't wrong to worry. It's just that medicine has spent too long focusing on one number while overlooking the bigger picture of metabolic health. The good news is you don't need to be afraid. Unlike genetic factors that we can't control, triglycerides and the triglyceride-HDL ratio depend mostly on lifestyle. That means with changes in diet and exercise, you can reduce your risk of a heart attack by as much as 80%. Doesn't it feel reassuring to know that heart health isn't only in the hands of your doctor or a statin prescription, but that you are the one in charge? Imagine a future where you can walk with your grandchildren, enjoy trips in your golden years, and live without the constant fear of a sudden heart attack. You'll see clearly that aging does not have to mean illness. It can be a time of health, meaning, and happiness. So why not start today with small but lasting changes? If this information has helped you better understand your heart and how to prevent heart attacks, please hit like, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more heart health secrets made especially for those over 60. Leave a comment below and type "healthy heart" if you're ready to begin your new journey towards heart health. And remember, the real enemy isn't just the LDL number. It's high triglycerides, a sedentary lifestyle, and too much sugar and refined carbs. Do you want to know exactly which fats are good for your heart and which ones you must absolutely avoid? If so, stay tuned for the next video, because that will be the final key to building a strong, healthy heart well into your 80s and 90s.